I was actually surprised that you chose a girl character.
I just recently learned a couple days ago that you can apparently change the gender of the character, and I chose to keep it a female.
Cool, man.
Like, me and her have a bond at this point. I'm not going to just up and give her a dick, you know? Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast. My name is Tyler Hunt, alongside my co-host, as always, Pat Kuhn. How's it going, dude?
It's going pretty well. It's been kind of a weird day. Normally, we like to start off the podcast by kind of sharing a funny story, and I had one all queued up. I finally canceled DirecTV, and so that was kind of a hassle, and I kind of had to be a dick to the lady because, I mean, she was just doing her job, but something happened after I got home from work that kind of trumped that story. And it's not going to be really funny. It's going to be one of those just like awkward type of funny. So when I get home every day from work, I always get home before my wife, so I let the dogs out. And we have a pretty decent sized backyard with a fence and everything. And I have two little dogs, so I just let them run. Yeah. Like, it's been nice out the last couple of weeks, and so I'll just come home and I'll just let them run. Yeah. And I'll cook something as a snack or whatever before my wife gets home and cooks dinner. My two puppies like to wrestle out in the backyard. Mm-hmm. And so every once in a while I'll check on them, and Rambo, the older one, likes to like get on his back, and the other one will kind of like bite at his neck, and they'll kind of just wrestle that way. Yeah. And so I went to check on him, and I looked out, and Caesar, my other dog, was like close to the fence. And I saw him playing with Rambo, and I was like, why is Rambo laying like that? Because he was kind of like laying on his side, and Caesar was biting at his neck. Well, Rambo wasn't actually doing anything. And so I like freaked out because I thought something actually happened to him. Yeah. And then I saw Rambo out of the corner of my eye walking towards Caesar. So I was like, what the fuck is that? And so I ran out there. My dog had found and killed a bunny. Well, I shouldn't say killed, because it was still alive. And so he was covered in blood.
Oh my God.
And so I had to get the dogs in. I locked Caesar in his crate because, again, covered in blood. And I had to go back out there, and the fucking thing was looking right at me.
Holy shit.
And it was whining, and like his leg was twitching. Yeah. I had to bash it over the head with a shovel to put it out of its misery. So that's what I did today.
Holy fuck, dude. I was not expecting that story to go that way.
Yeah.
That is
And then I had to bury a goddamn bunny.
That's some traumatic stuff.
Yeah. And then I had to clean my dog off.
Oh, yeah, clean the blood off of your dog. That is... I'm actually just kind of impressed Caesar was able to catch and do that to a bunny.
So... We don't live necessarily in the woods, but it's kind of in the back. So, I mean, there's woods near our house. And so occasionally you will see like a stray bunny or whatever run across our lawn or whatever. I don't know where they're living currently, but I should have left the other one in the backyard. Like, as an example, this is what happened when you come into our backyard. And so you'll see them occasionally. They run after them, but they never come close to catching them. So I don't know what the hell happened with this bunny, but yeah. Caesar fucked it up.
Oh my God.
It was messed up, dude.
Yeah, that is.
It's a weird way to start the podcast, but I was just like, this is such a weird thing that happened to me today.
There's so much shocking stuff to process. It's like, he caught the bunny, he mauled the bunny, you had to kill a bunny. And then now you have a bunny graveyard in your backyard, and I don't know. Yeah, that's how horror movies start. You're going to be haunted by some bunny.
Yeah. I have a bunny cemetery behind my house now.
Have you ever seen the movie Pet Sematary?
Yes, I have.
I watched it for the first time last October, and
if you take it for what it is, it's a decent movie.
Yeah, it's not bad.
All right, so now that we got that out of the way, we normally start the episode with not a traumatic story, but just kind of checking in with what we're into.
We lost all of our vegan listeners.
For sure. For those that don't know me personally, I'm a huge animal lover. I mean, I love dogs, but any animals. So it was
Just
actually, it was actually pretty traumatic. I was not very happy. But I mean, in his defense, he is a dog, and that's what dogs do. So it's like, I wasn't mad at him. I was just kind of freaked out. But yes, we don't normally start off the episode with that weird story.
There's somebody out there who's like, oh, this podcast might be fun, and they downloaded it, and that was the first thing they ever heard us say to each other, and they're done. They're already out.
So we normally check in with each other. We call it what we're into. So what are you into this week?
I think that I kind of gave it away that I would be playing this game on our the end of our last episode, but I picked up For Honor and have been playing that like nonstop this week, and I have been really impressed with it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this game. It was not on my radar at all. I had not heard of it until Conan did his Clueless Gamer at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I saw that. It's fun. Did you know it's getting its own TV show?
No, I didn't. But is it going to have him on it, or just like?
Yeah, it's going to be him. I think it's going to be on TBS, or maybe it just might be a YouTube thing. But I'm almost positive it's going to be on TBS, and it's just that's going to be the show.
That's pretty cool, because I do like those skits when he does them. And they played For Honor, like I said, at the Super Bowl. I think it was Dwight Freeney and Tom Brady playing against each other, and then Marshawn Lynch shows up partway through it because he's always on Conan's show, it seems like. But that was the first time I had ever heard of this game, and that was the first time I had ever seen gameplay from this game. And it looked like it was just basically two characters wailing on each other and like people falling off ledges all the time, and it did not honestly look that fun. But as it got closer to its actual release date, I started hearing good things, and I saw some good reviews, so I bit and I bought it because I had heard that it was a lot of fun, and it had some cool multiplayer, which is obviously one of the huge things I look for when I'm purchasing a new game. And like I said, I'm really impressed with it so far. I will admit that I've not played all of the modes that it has available. I've mostly stuck to multiplayer, specifically deathmatch or duels, which I'll get into in a second. But there is, in addition to that game type, there's also a campaign, which can be cooperative or single player. And then there's also, besides deathmatch and duels and multiplayer, there's also a mode called Domain, which is kind of like King of the Hill, from what I understand. But you start this game and you start with a tutorial, and it feels a lot like the game Dynasty Warriors. Do you remember that game from back in the day?
I remember it, but I didn't play it very much.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything. It was both basically like a hack and slash. You just hit a button, and that's what the tutorial kind of felt like, which bummed me out because it was going to be super boring if you're just going into groups of a lot of enemies and hitting X over and over. But luckily, that's not what this game mostly entails. I don't know if the campaign involves that, but so far in multiplayer, that is far from what it entails. It's kind of a fighting game, but that's definitely an oversimplification, because what it is, it's very detailed battling. It's detailed battling, detailed blocking, and the fighting system is very intense and extremely gratifying whenever you manage to kill somebody, because you put in a lot of work. It's almost like a chess game, playing back and forth and trying to block and get some hits in and use your character's moves. So it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I've been mostly playing Team Deathmatch and the duels. Team Deathmatches includes two modes, and it's a 50-50 chance whatever you get. It could be one called Elimination, which is 4v4, and it's the best of 5 rounds. Once you die in a round, you're pretty much dead. There are instances where you can be resurrected, but I won't get into all of the nitty-gritty details. And then Skirmish is you get points by killing the other team, and the first team to 1,000 basically wins. Once you hit 1,000, you have to eliminate the other team, then you win. But they're both really fun game types. As far as the gameplay goes, there's different characters. There's 3 classes. There's Vikings, Samurai, and Knights. And within each of those classes, there are 4 different types of characters. So there's a Vanguard, a Heavy, an Assassin, and a Hybrid. So all in all right now, 12 characters, but I do know that they're going to be putting more characters out as the game goes on. My favorite character to play at so far, the one that I've been leveling up, is a Viking character that's an assassin, and her name is Berserker. and she wields double axes, and she's really awesome. Having a lot of fun with that character. I think I'm on a level 15 with her, and at level 21, I think you prestige. So you would, I guess, start over like in Call of Duty, but I'm not sure. I haven't gotten there yet. But all in all, it's really fun. It's really addicting, and I'm excited to keep playing. The only thing I dislike about this game is the concept of the season pass, which is not just this game. It's a lot of games nowadays. But, you know, they promise that they're rolling out more maps and more characters and more game types and yada, yada, yada. And if you get the season pass for $40, you get all that. But to me, if you're buying a fucking season pass for $40, you better be giving me 2/3 of a new game, because this game was $60. So I'm not on board with the season pass, and I don't know that I will be. So I'm not going to bite on that. But besides that whole aspect of it, and again, it's not exclusive to this game. It's something that a lot of games do now. I'm really, really digging it.
Yeah, man, this is a game that, and I think I mentioned that when you pimped it last episode, it came out right at the tail end of when I was finishing up Resident Evil 7, and Halo Wars was coming out like that next week. So I had to make a choice, because I'm one of those gamers that has to finish a game before I start another one, or I will have Far Cry Primal or Tomb Raider or something like that where it just sits on my shelf and I never play it or finish it. So I chose Halo Wars 2, which I'm enjoying, but that's actually not what I'm into, but I'll get into that here in a second. I actually watched part of your stream on Monday, just because I wanted to see it. I'd seen other people play it. I saw Conan play it on Clueless Gamer, and it looked cool, but I wanted to check it out, and I was actually surprised that you chose a girl character. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just thought that was surprising.
Here's even a better option. I just recently learned a couple days ago that you can apparently change the gender of the character.
Without losing anything?
Without losing anything, and I chose to keep it a female.
Cool, man.
Like, me and her have a bond at this point. I'm not going to just up and give her a dick, you know? Like,
unless it's your dick.
No, not my type. But, yeah, no.
It's all pink in the dark, man.
Oh, Jesus. But no, I decided to keep her the way she is, because she's beautiful the way she is.
Okay.
Anyways, man, what are you into?
So I watched The Great Wall the other week, and for those longtime listeners, you're probably thinking, well, why did you go see that movie that looks like garbage? Well, we were in Louisville visiting my dad, who is currently moving to Las Vegas, so we were kind of going there. It was the last weekend he was going to be in Louisville, so we wanted to help him pack a little bit, kind of finish that up, and just kind of visit him a little bit. And he goes to bed early, and we had these free tickets to this theater that's only in Louisville. So we were like, well, let's go see a movie once he goes to bed. So there's not a whole lot playing right now, and I thought it kind of looked like one of those movies that, it looks stupid and kind of silly, but I thought that maybe, hopefully, that it'd be a movie that kind of embraced how ridiculous it was and kind of embraced the suck a little bit, and it would have been fun. Like, one of those movies that you laugh at, but it's also in on the joke sort of thing. Unfortunately, before I get into it, basically, if you don't already know what this movie's about, it's Matt Damon plays a mercenary that stumbles across the Great Wall of China while searching for black powder, which is just gunpowder, but that's what they keep calling it in the movie, is black powder, and gets pulled into a fight for the fate of mankind. So, before I get into what I thought about the movie, first thing that I want to talk about is I hope that Matt Damon's wife is okay, that she's home safe, because I say that because I assume that the only reason he did this movie was because she was being held captive. Because this movie, like, he's not an actor that I think is just amazing. Like, he has his moments, sure, but he's Matt Damon. He's definitely one of the more famous actors.
Yeah.
I don't hold him in like super high regard or anything like that, but he's talented and he definitely has a lot of clout.
Yeah.
So why the fuck are you doing a movie like this? This movie failed on so many different fronts. I feel like going into this movie, it had three possible outcomes. It could either be One of those movies, like I said, that was fun and it was on purpose, like it was in on the joke, and you just kind of enjoyed it for what it was. Another one would be it was fun, but not on purpose, like Troll 2 sort of things, like where you can laugh at it, but it didn't mean for it to be that bad. Or 3, it just strived to be a good movie, and it just kind of blew me out of the water, completely surprised me. It was none of those things. It wanted to be a good movie, but it wasn't. It wasn't even bad and I could laugh at it. It was bad, and it was fucking boring bad. And it was hard to watch. Mostly because it was really bad storytelling. Like, it was the lowest common denominator of the fantasy genre. Like, they gave you this concept of, okay, there's this secret order of the Chinese army that protects the wall. Well, what are they protecting against? Oh, there's these creatures that come from another dimension every 60 years and attack the wall.
Woof.
Okay, why is it every 60 years? Don't ever fucking tell you. Why do they come and attack? Well, this one emperor a long time ago was super greedy, and he opened up this dimension, and now these creatures attack. But they don't really explain the motivation. The creatures look really dumb. They're basically these big lizards. And Tyler, you already know this, but my wife and I watch this reality show on Sci-Fi called Face Off.
Yep.
And what it is I'm not a big reality TV guy, but I do enjoy this show because what it is it's these people that compete that are like makeup and like creature designers. And it's really cool to see them kind of start from finish, create these creatures that I could see in a movie. And it's a really cool process. Obviously, there's reality show stuff where they create drama and stuff like that. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to that. But the reason I bring it up is because one of the judges on there, he's always preaching, yeah, you want to make your characters look cool, but you also need to realistically think, okay, what does this have, like, what function does this play in the overall creature? Like, you can give it a bunch of tentacles, but why are the tentacles where you put them, or why does he have 6 and not 4? That sort of thing. Like, there has to be a realistic reason, or functionality is probably a better word. And the creatures, not only did they not look cool, they just look like big lizards, but they're on all fours, and they have these long snouts, and at the end of the snout, there's like teeth, these razor-sharp teeth. Look okay. I mean, it doesn't look super cool. I've seen better. But their eyes are on like where their shoulders are. So it kept taking me out of the movie because I kept thinking of this guy watching this movie, like yelling at the screen, because there's no functionality to that.
Yeah.
Because if their eyes are on their shoulders, they have these long snouts. Realistically, there's a blind spot right in front of your fucking face because you can't see right in the middle of your face because your eyes are so far back. So that bothered me, and they didn't even look cool. So that was frustrating. I will say one redeeming quality of this movie, and it's the only redeeming quality of the movie, is I think it's one of those movies, and we talked about this last week with our Oscar predictions. There's typically one of these movies that gets panned by critics, but will get nominated for like production design or makeup or costume or something. And we're like, why did that? And then you watch the movie and you're like, oh yeah, the costumes were really cool, or the production design was really cool. And that's this movie. I would not be surprised if this movie gets nominated for something like that, because I think they spent like over $200 million on this movie. It is the most expensive movie ever filmed in China, if you believe IMDb trivia, which is always kind of hit or miss, but take it for what it's worth. So they spent a ton of money on this movie, and it looks beautiful, other than the creatures, obviously. There's this army, like I said, the secret order, and each part of the army, like there's factions of this army, and each of them are named after a animal, and so their armor reflects that, and they're all different colors, and it's really articulate, or not articulate, just the design is really cool on it, and it's just very meticulous design, and it looks really cool. So it wouldn't surprise me if it got like costume or makeup or something like that. But other than that, this movie is garbage. Matt Damon is just really phoning it in this movie. And he tries to do this weird accent that I can't even pin down. Like at one point, I think he was trying to do Native American. And then another point that he was trying to do this like Scottish Irish accent, and then sometimes he just loses the accent altogether, and he's just Matt Damon. It's super, super awkward. Yeah, don't go see this movie. It's garbage.
I didn't know anything about this movie for the longest time. I just knew that it was called The Great Wall, and Matt Damon was in it. And I figured that it was a movie they made for Oscar bait about the building of the Great Wall or some shit, and it ended up not making the cut, so they dumped it in February. Then I saw a trailer for it, and I saw that it's supernatural and the lizard monsters and all that stuff, and I was immediately out. Like, I thought that this looked awful, and I guess its big selling point is the director, because he directed Hero and House of Flying Daggers and a few others. And I'm sure it's going to clean up in China, which is, you know...
It got released, I think, like a month prior in China, and it already... Its production budget was like over $200 million, and it made like $250 in China. So it had made its production budget, but as big movie buffs know, that's not always the budget. It's usually at least a third of that you add to its final budget because of marketing and stuff like that. So
I don't know that this movie was made for American audiences. It seems like it was filmed in China, Chinese director, the Great Wall, and then you throw in crazy monsters, and I don't know. Like, I'm sure there's people in America that dig that, but I mean, for me and you, it doesn't seem like it was made for us or our tastes.
It was kind of, I don't want to say disappointing, so I'm kind of having a hard time finding the word for it, because it's based on a story by Max Brooks. I don't know if he wrote a story and it's like a short story, or if he just wrote, because you know with movies it says story by, and that means they came up with a concept but they didn't write the script. So I don't know if it was based on a short story or if he just came up with the concept. Max Brooks is the son of Mel Brooks, who I'm a huge fan of. I'm also a fan of Max Brooks because he wrote World War Z, which is amazing. And then it had Matt Damon in it. So I was like, there has to be a reason why these guys that I do like. Now, granted, I'm not a huge Matt Damon fan, but like I said, he has clout and he picks his spots pretty well, and he's decent in most things. So it's like, there has to be a reason why he would do this movie. And maybe it's because he trusted the director, and that trust was unfounded because this movie is garbage. But, it was, like I said, not disappointing, but I did expect a little bit more from the creative forces that were behind this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's disappointing.
For sure. So our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week, and we like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
I got caught up on Infamous Iron Man.
Okay, cool.
So I had read the first issue when it came out, and I got behind. So I had to catch up on issues 2 through 5. And I don't know what to make of this comic.
Okay.
So if you don't know what it's about, so I'll be honest with you, I never finished Civil War. I have like one issue left, and for whatever reason I haven't read it. So I don't know what happens at the end of Civil War 2, but I do know, obviously, because of this comic, that Tony Stark is no longer Iron Man, so he either dies or resigns or whatever in Civil War. And in his absence, since Civil War 2, Dr. Doom has taken up the mantle of Iron Man, which I thought going into it, he was in the Invincible Iron Man series leading up to Civil War, and that just wrapped up, and now they're doing it with the young girl who's taken up the Iron Man, who was also doing like an Iron Man thing. But the other Invincible Iron Man, where Tony Stark was still Iron Man, it took place after Secret Wars, and Dr. Doom showed up, and, he lost the mask, and he was kind of acting like a good guy, and nobody knew what to make of it. Now he's taking up the mantra of Iron Man, and people still don't know what to make of it. And we find out in these issues why he is portraying Iron Man. And you would think that, you can't trust Dr. Doom. He's the biggest baddie in the Marvel universe, in my opinion. And there's a lot of great villains in the Marvel universe, but to me, Dr. Doom is definitely up there. And, he's doing it for noble reasons. And it spins out of what happened to him in Secret Wars. And as you know, fucking hated Secret Wars.
Yeah.
So anytime that we get to revisit what happened in that arc, I'm not 100% on board. I didn't like it, and this is definitely building on his character because of what happened in Secret Wars. So before I go any further, I do want to ask you: are you reading Infamous
Nope.
Spider-Man? Okay, or you're not planning on it?
Nope.
Okay, so this happened in issue 3 or 4, and we're on issue 5 now. So it is a spoiler for those earlier issues, but they've been out for a few months now, so I feel like I'm okay to spoil a couple of minor plot points. But this comic is fun for the most part because this first 5 issues is basically Ben Grimm. He's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. now. Fantastic Four is no more, and it's basically him hunting down Dr. Doom. And that part of it's fun, and the characters obviously have a rapport because Fantastic Four and Dr. Doom have done battle for years and years and years, and that's kind of cool to see. What I don't like about this comic necessarily is Dr. Doom has good intentions because he says in Secret Wars he got everything he ever wanted. He got to basically be a god, and he basically got to control the universe, and it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And he had some self-realization and came back to Earth and decided to be a hero. And for me, that just doesn't sit right. Like, you have this character that has done a lot of terrible things and is an amazing villain, and you're going to just decide that now he wants to be a hero. And in all fairness, other characters within the comic kind of have the same feelings that I do. Like Ben Grimm and Maria Hill, don't trust him, obviously.
For sure, yeah.
But it rubs me the wrong way, the same way that Dr. Octopus becoming the superior Spider-Man rubbed me the wrong way. And at least in that, like, he still had villainous tendencies, but Dr. Doom's just like completely flipped, and he wants to be a hero now, and they're kind of writing him as a sympathetic character, and they bring his mom into it, which has this whole mythology around it that I didn't realize, but it just doesn't sit right with me, again, because he's such an iconic bad guy. I don't like him being Iron Man. And it's weird that out of all the heroes that he's going to take up the mantra of, it's Iron Man. Like, why can't he be himself? Why can't he be something new? And why does he still wear the green cloak over his Iron Man suit? It doesn't feel right. But that being said, I really do like the writer of this. I don't remember his first name, but his last name is Bendis. And he wrote the Invincible Iron Man. And before Max Bendis, yes. He wrote the Invincible Iron Man. He wrote Superior Iron Man, which I really liked.
Civil War, didn't he?
He might have. I think you might be right. And I really do like...
Which was garbage.
Yeah. See, did you finish it?
No, I gave up after like 6 issues.
Yeah, I need to read those last 1 or 2 issues. But I do like his writing for the most part, so I'm going to stick with it for now. But I don't know how you turn him back to being evil after this, because it's such a... I know that nothing's permanent in the comic book world, but, he basically achieved everything he ever wanted in Secret Wars, and he didn't like it. So what motivation do you give the character to turn him back to evil when the time comes?
Yeah, I wonder if he started to take up the Iron Man, like the suit, because obviously there's already trust issues, but if he just was Dr. Doom as a superhero, like, there would be no trust.
Yeah.
So maybe he just took up Iron Man because he thought that would help the transition a little bit. I don't know.
And that would be great if they wrote it into the comic, but there's just no reason. I mean, he hung around Tony Stark in Invincible Iron Man, and Tony Stark was leery of him, and now he's Iron Man because Tony Stark's not in the picture anymore. So I don't know. It doesn't click for me. But that being said, I got to give him bonus points for being creative, I guess. So
yeah, and I didn't hate Superior Spider-Man as much as you did. I did like the change of pace, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there was that dilemma with Doc Ock because he wanted to be the superior Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's what he always claimed. That's hence the title of the book. But he kind of understood where Peter Parker was coming from, why he made certain choices and stuff like that. So I actually kind of like that dynamic. Now there's issues of that book, which is just garbage, most notably number 9. But I've gone into that before, so I won't go into it again. But I don't mind when villains kind of take up the mantle, but there has to be a good reason for that to take place, obviously. And I think, I mean, obviously I liked Secret Wars a lot more than you did. So I think that's a good enough reason, because like you said, he got what he wanted and it's not what he wanted. So he can kind of take a different path now, because he kind of took the path he was going on as far as he could, and it just didn't work out for him. So it makes sense that he would kind of change directions a little bit. But eventually, he has to go back to being Doctor Doom, because he can't be Iron Man forever.
No, and nothing's permanent in comic book world, so.
For sure.
All right, man, what'd you read?
So, a couple episodes ago, I talked about Kingpin #1, which is a book that I was pretty disappointed with. And this week, I'm going to talk about a different kind of big Daredevil character in Elektra #1. And unlike Kingpin, I was actually pleasantly surprised by how much I liked this book. Not because I don't like the character and I was like, oh man, I'm surprised that Elektra was good. It's just that she doesn't seem like a character that, not strong enough, it would be a bad term, but she always seems to be kind of a side character. Like, she plays really well off of Daredevil. I kind of think of her being kind of Daredevil's Catwoman. Like,
oh, for sure.
Batman and Catwoman just play well off of each other. I don't know if I'm necessarily that into Catwoman's story if it doesn't involve Batman. So I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked this issue of Elektra without Daredevil. I think that #1s are kind of tough tasks for creative teams, because you have to do a lot of things at the same time. You have to introduce the players, but also you have to kind of have a hook to keep readers coming back, but you also don't want to blow your load in the first issue. So it is this really tough balancing act, and I think this creative team did a really good job, because it showed Elektra as this badass, which obviously she is. I mean, if you know anything about the character, you know that she's a badass.
Yeah.
But they actually showed it in this issue. But you also get some mystery. There's like this Running Man thing that's going on. Like, did you ever see that old Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Running Man? I'm pretty sure they don't come out and say exactly what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be something similar to that movie. A competition. It's basically like they pin these people against each other, and kind of like this competition. They don't come out and say that that's what it is, but they keep teasing this competition, and I'm really excited to see her in that sort of Running Man type of competition. So I'm definitely intrigued by that. I don't know if that's the direction that they're going. Like I said, they don't give you too much information, but I just think that they do a really good job of giving you enough to keep you intrigued, because I'm really excited for issue #2.
Yeah.
But they don't give you too much, so you don't, oh, well, I don't even need to read issue 2 because I've seen all I need to see in issue 1. So I'm definitely excited for this this comic book. Plus, I don't know if this is a permanent move or not, but like I said, in what I'm into, my dad is moving to Vegas. I have family that lives in Vegas. I used to live in Vegas, and Elektra actually moved to Vegas in this comic book. So I'm kind of digging that. I mean, of course, I love Spider-Man. I love Marvel Universe. I love that it happens in New York City, but I've never been to New York City. Not that that takes away from anything reading these comics, but it's going to be kind of cool to see a character that I like in a city that I'm familiar with. I think that definitely will add some. Now, I don't believe that the casino that she went to, there's so many in Vegas, so it could be a real casino, but I'm pretty sure it's a made-up one, just so they didn't have to pay the rights. But hopefully she goes out on the strip and stuff like that. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I know you really disliked Kingpin. I think between the Kingpin character and the Elektra character, Elektra's more apt for a standalone comic. So
for sure.
I don't know. This is one that I might retroactively go back and pick up, because it does sound kind of interesting.
For sure.
All right, man. You ready to move on to nerd news?
Yeah, what do you got this week?
All right. So first up, not a huge story, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning. Keanu Reeves was asked about what it would take for him to make The Matrix 4, and he gave a couple like musts for him to be involved in it ever. Obviously, the first one was that the Wachowskis would have to be involved and that they would have to write and direct it, and then he would make a decision to see where the story is. Even though he's made so many decisions throughout his career where story didn't seem to matter, but those are his conditions. And so my question to you is, do you think we'll ever see another Matrix movie?
No, but those aren't like really lofty conditions either.
No,
because I mean, I assume if they were going to make a Matrix 4, that those things were going to happen anyways.
Yeah. I mean, why would you give that to somebody else? Like, that was the Wachowskis' baby.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know. Obviously, there's not been like a hankering for more Matrix movies because the sequels to the original were so poorly received. But
I didn't think they were that bad, but they set such a lofty standard for themselves because the first one just kind of blew everybody out of the water. It was ridiculously good, and it was crazy. It's just one of those movies that just blew everybody away. Yeah. And you were never going to live up to that. There's just no way that you're going to Dark Knight that trilogy. The first one is just so good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know though. If they keep making Cloud Atlases and Jupiter Ascendings, they may be wanting some of that Matrix money. So yeah, well, we'll see. Their career is definitely not what it used to be, so they might be wanting to go back to that. Well, let's see. Next, Guillermo del Toro went on record as saying that Hellboy 3 is not going to happen just because they, I guess, can't get finances or that not everybody's on the same page or yada, yada, yada. He basically gave the definitive answer that movie will not get made. It doesn't surprise me. Honestly, I didn't really like the second one that much. Yeah, I remember you disliking it. It screamed Men in Black to me. Like, just silly. Like, I mean, it's kind of a silly concept, but the first one is just pretty dark and gritty, and I like that character. Like, it's weird, but it kind of not necessarily embraces it because it's not like super ridiculous, but well, it's pretty ridiculous. It's just I like the first one, and the second one just kind of I feel like it had that sequel syndrome where it just felt like it needed to do more, and I think it already had found its sweet spot with the first one, and so it just kind of screamed like Men in Black, kind of ridiculous sequel syndrome sort of movie, and so I didn't like it. And the third one doesn't. The fact that the third one's not getting made doesn't surprise me. Yeah, I don't even remember anything about the first two. It's been so long since I've seen them, and I think I saw each of them once, so I don't have. Like, I would have liked to see him finish out the trilogy, but like, I'm not invested in it. Like, I don't really care. On to this next one. Hulu is going to do a 10-episode miniseries of Castle Rock. So basically a collaboration between Stephen King, because he wrote the novel for Castle Rock, and then Bad Robot is producing it. So obviously J.J. Abrams' production company. What also is kind of cool about this is that a writer on that show is Mark Bernardin, who is a co-host of Batman on Batman, who we got to see at Indie PopCon last year. So he is one of the writers for that show as well. So it sounds pretty awesome, man. I had never heard of Castle Rock. Like, I'm a big Stephen King fan, but not like, that big, because I had never heard of Castle Rock. He's got a lot of fucking books, man. So I started reading about what the synopsis for it, and it sounds pretty cool. I guess it's a lady and her husband go away to some cabin, and they're getting a little kinky, and she's handcuffed to the bed, and he dies, and then she's just handcuffed to the bed, and she starts to see things that may or may not be real, and it kind of goes from there. So I don't know how you stretch that into 10 episodes necessarily, because I can only take so much of a lady laying on a bed hallucinating, but I obviously trust the creative behind it, so I'm looking forward to it. Oh yeah, for sure. And wasn't it Bad Robot that did 11? Yeah, that sounds right, which we reviewed, 11/22/63. Yeah. So maybe this is something that we will end up reviewing down the road. For sure. Let's see. They are going to be making the X-Force movie, and it turns out that Ryan Reynolds is going to co-write it with, I believe, Drew Goddard, who has done quite a bit. I think he did the Godzilla movie, if I'm not mistaken. So, am I confusing him with somebody else? I thought he did. Wasn't he the original Daredevil guy, and then he ended up leaving after one episode, or am I thinking of somebody else?
he was the Daredevil showrunner. And I am wrong. So him and Ryan Reynolds are writing the Deadpool 2 script. I must have been mistaken about that them being on X-Force. So, but anyways, like what I got out of that was Ryan Reynolds writing. Like it's like you're a pretty guy, Ryan, but come on, man. Like,
eventually, you do enough movies. Eventually, I think, as an artist, you would want more creative control over it.
Yeah, obviously, he does. And there was news around the X-Force movie and the Deadpool 2 movie. So Deadpool 2 is being written by Drew Goddard and Ryan Reynolds, and then X-Force is going to be done by Joe Carnahan, who did The Gray, Smokin' Aces, The A-Team, and he's going to be doing the next Bad Boys movie if that ever gets made. So, I don't know. There's some cool creative stuff in there, but you think they're going to be able to recapture the magic for another appearance from Deadpool?
Yeah, I think so.
I would hope so, but I think that if you introduce characters like Cable and Domino like they're planning on doing, and they don't just use them as characters for Deadpool to bounce off of and be crazy, and they actually give some weight to those characters as well, it could be really cool. But I don't want Cable to just be the Colossus of this movie.
Yeah. I would have thought that they would have been further along with Deadpool 2. It seems like they've been talking about it for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, with Tim Miller leaving, it seems like there's been so much talk about it that they would have been further along than this point.
I want to say that they were aiming for a release next year, but now it doesn't have a release date, so I don't know if they're going to be able to make a...
There's no way that they would make it next year. With all the posts that has to go on a movie like that, you would think that they'd have to be filming almost like right now.
Yeah. So Drew Goddard is not directing it. He's just writing it with Ryan Reynolds, I guess. But he's credited as the...
Because isn't the John Wick guy, isn't he doing the directing?
Yeah, that's correct. So Drew Goddard's just writing it, which he has more writing credits than directing credits anyways. The only thing he's directed is Cabin in the Woods, and he directed an episode of The Good Place. So that's all he's directed, but he is credited as the creator of the Daredevil TV show. He also wrote the screenplay for The Martian, the screenplay for World War Z, which we were just talking about. I guess he wrote that with
Max Brooks wrote the book.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, he's definitely found a lot of success as a writer, so that is definitely a good sign. And he seems to be a Marvel nerd because he's involved with Daredevil as well.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. Next, we're going to go on to some DC news, and we'll be done. So, Matt Reeves has been confirmed as the director of The Batman after I feel like we've talked about the story last week or maybe even 2 weeks in a row. He stepped away from negotiations, but apparently they pulled him back in and they got him to sign a deal. So he will be directing The Batman, which obviously I'm a huge fan of his work between Cloverfield and the Apes movies. Well, we haven't seen Planet of the Apes, but
there's no way that movie's going to be bad, though.
Yeah, right. So Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is amazing, and I think that he is a pretty dope choice to take over from Ben Affleck. He's probably a better choice than Ben Affleck after I watched Live by Night.
So, first of all, I was a little upset about this. Not that he's directing. I agree with you. I think he's a good choice. But I kind of went on a limb a little bit on our Instagram channel, or not channel, Instagram page, and talked a little shit with a meme, and then they like a day later they announced that he was going to be directing. So I didn't feel bad about it because I thought the meme was funny, but
it was even a better kick in the nuts because it was your boy who's doing the ape movies.
Yeah, for sure. So I saw this and I thought maybe you would bring it up, and maybe you will, and maybe I'm kind of stealing your thunder a little bit, but I actually thought it was bigger news that Ben Affleck tweeted out like "Welcome to the Batcave."
Oh, I'm sure Warner Brothers was like, "You tweet this motherfucker."
Yeah, well, because I mean,
you're still under contract.
There's so many rumors.
Well, I don't think that was an accident. I think that he's very he's not dumb. He doesn't.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's very aware of the rumors out there, and whether he's planning on just working out his contract and being done or not, it seems like he's at least making the Batman movie, and he's excited about Matt Reeves coming on from the looks of it, and I would be too if I were him. So I don't know. I mean, that pretty much confirms that he's at least he's gonna still be Batman for a couple more movies, and we'll see if he re-ups on his contract or not. But you would think with that Batman character, they're going to expect a lot out of him over the next couple of years. Because while you might not need him for Suicide Squad 2, you can't really have a Gotham City Sirens movie without Batman showing up like maybe he did in Suicide Squad for 5 minutes. Like, you're in fucking Gotham City and you're villains.
Yeah.
Like, Batman's got to be a minor part of that at least, right? So
I'd be disappointed if he was only minor.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Because Gotham City's always been his territory.
You wouldn't have characters like Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and Catwoman running around, even if they're kind of being vigilantes or whatever. You wouldn't have them running around without Batman, like, keeping a watchful eye.
For sure.
So I agree with you. I hope that he's a bigger part of that movie than Suicide Squad. And then last but not least, another piece of DC movie news that broke on the same day that Matt Reeves was announced as the director, which was big for them. Chris McKay, who did the Lego Batman movie,
Yep.
is going to do a live-action Nightwing movie. And I think I was more excited for this than I was for the confirmation of Matt Reeves. When we did our Lego Batman review, obviously we both really liked that movie quite a bit. But one of the things I mentioned, ironically enough, was I wish that the Robin character would get a little bit more clout or a little bit more respect and be done in live action the correct way. And it's very ironic that I said that because he's the butt of a lot of jokes in that movie, pun intended. And the guy who made that movie is now going to do a live action Nightwing movie. So that is cool in my book. Like, I was impressed with the deep cut Batman references in the Lego Batman movie. So obviously Chris McKay is familiar with the material, and I think that it's cool that they're giving him a shot with this.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, we talked about it with our Lego Batman review, like, take out the villains at the end.
Yeah.
And take out some of the Lego references and stuff like that. It's a really solid Batman story. So he obviously cares about the character. He obviously knows the mythology of the character, and obviously Nightwing is a big part of that mythology. So you would assume if you know a lot about Batman, you probably know a decent amount about Nightwing. So I think he'll be able to handle the character really well. But he seems like he's more of a comedic director, not just because of Lego Batman, but he also did Robot Chicken.
Mm-hmm.
For me, and I mean, you know more about DC than I do, he's not necessarily a comedic character.
He's much more lighthearted than Batman.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not very hard to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, reading the Nightwing comic, it's hard to relate him to another character. Like, he's not quite as comical as Spider-Man.
Sure.
But he has more fun with his crime fighting than Batman does. Batman's, of course, as we all know, dark and brooding and in pain, whereas Nightwing, you know, he's an orphan as well, but he kind of not got over his losing his parents, but he didn't lose his charisma, or I don't know what the word
sense of humor, or
sense of humor. Yeah. Like, he still goes back and forth with bad guys and is definitely a more lighthearted character. So there's going to be more room for comedy, I think, in that movie.
Cool.
But not like him ripping his pants off saying stupid stuff like in the Lego Batman movie, but definitely room for jokes here and there.
Cool, man.
That is all I have.
All right, so our next segment is just kind of our main topic. It changes from episode to episode. We are going to review the new horror comedy Get Out. This was written and directed by Jordan Peele, who is formerly of Key and Peele, which is a show that I liked. I didn't watch every episode, but I was a fan of that show, which was on Comedy Central for a long time. It's about Chris, an African-American who decides to take his relationship to the next step with his Caucasian girlfriend, Rose, and visit her parents for the weekend at their secluded all-white neighborhood. So, I don't know about you, Tyler, but I did not have a ton of expectations, other than the fact that I do like Jordan Peele, and I kind of wanted him to succeed in his first, I believe this is his first directorial debut.
Yeah, because I don't think that he and Keegan-Michael Peele, or wait, what the fuck is his name?
Yeah,
Keegan Peele.
Yeah.
Keegan-Michael, or whatever. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think they directed Keanu.
No, I don't think they wrote it, didn't they?
Yes, that is correct. This is the only movie he's directed.
So yeah, so I didn't have too many expectations going in. I mean, like I said, I wanted to succeed because I like him, but the trailer or anything, like, it didn't do anything for me. So what were your expectations going in to Get Out?
I didn't have high expectations at all because obviously it didn't look like groundbreaking or anything. It just looked kind of.
It's got
like
a hundo in Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. That is the only thing that gave me any expectation at all. Like, I thought the trailers looked interesting. I thought it looked like a cool concept, and then I saw that it had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm like, all right, maybe this movie's going to do something. So I had that kind of expectation, but besides one of the trailers, I hadn't seen anything about it. So
yeah, I generally, especially with a movie that I know we're going to review, I'll look at the score, sure, but I won't read any of the reviews just because I don't want to have that influence me. And sometimes I won't even look at the score because I don't want that to influence me. But I was definitely happy to see that, but then I also didn't, like I said, want to get too deep into the reviews just because, again, I didn't want that to influence me, and I kind of wanted to make up my own mind. So we start off all these reviews by just kind of giving a general overview. We call it broad strokes. So what do you feel about Get Out?
So I'm not going to bury the lead at all. This is by far the best horror movie / thriller I've seen in a very long time. Almost everything about this movie, in my opinion, is on point. The originality, the humor, the score is great. I love the performances, which we'll get into, and the tension within this movie was palpable.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I could tell this was a passion project for Jordan Peele. Obviously, him writing it and directing it, and it being the first thing he's ever directed. Like, that's an example of the great entertainment that we, the consumer, can get when Hollywood trusts original ideas from talented people. So, yeah, I was very, very pleased with this movie, to say the least.
So these are the films that I think I enjoy the most. Don't get me wrong, I love blockbusters. I mean, we talk about them constantly. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was my favorite movie of all time, and that was a big blockbuster. So I love those movies, but I think that I enjoy these types of movies more because, like I said, I didn't have too much of expectations going in. And honestly, I didn't know much about it other than I saw the trailer, but that was it, and I knew Jordan Peele wrote and directed it. But other than that, I didn't know anything about that. There was only one trailer. I didn't see 3 trailers. I didn't see a teaser for the trailer. So these are the movies that I think I enjoy the most because I just don't know that much going into it. So I had no idea where this movie was going at all. It reminded me of like these indie movies that you'll see 1 or 2 a year that you don't know a whole lot about going in, but they just completely blow you away. Like Green Room last year. I know you didn't like it as much as Matt and I did, but I loved that movie, and I didn't know anything about that going in. I don't even think I saw a trailer. I just knew it was the same guy that did Blue Ruin, which I loved Blue Ruin. So I was like, okay, that's the only thing that got me into that movie, and Jordan Peele was the only thing that got me into this movie. So I just kind of trusted that I was going to like it because of him, and I was just completely blown away. Like you, every bit of this movie was just on par. I completely agree with the score. It was the type of horror movie that we constantly are talking about, that there's not a ton of, there's really no jump scares hardly at all in this movie. It's all tension, it's all score, it's all atmosphere. It's just really, really well put together. And it's surprising that it's his directorial debut. I mean, yeah, he did The Show, but obviously that's a sketch comedy show. That's different. But to put together this movie and just everything is pitch perfect. Of course, the comedy's really funny. It's not a ton of comedy. It's more awkward sort of things that I kind of laughed at because that's kind of the comedy that I enjoy the most.
Yep.
hence my weird story at the beginning of this podcast. But even the stuff between him and his friend was really funny. Now, obviously, that's meant he's the comic relief in this movie. But, yeah, it was just every aspect of this movie was just spot on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we break down each review into different segments. Our first main segment is we talk about the story. So how'd you feel about the story?
It was so original and out there, and for me, it struck on all chords. It was really solid writing, and when I think back through the movie, there's little to no fat that could be trimmed.
No.
Like, it was a nice, tight horror thriller where every scene mattered. The vibes throughout that movie kept me on the edge of my seat, and I constantly thought that I had figured the movie out or knew where it was going, and a little bit of a curve would be thrown in that would throw me off. And there were a couple plot points that I did see coming, but for the most part, like where you end up at the end of this movie, and of course I won't spoil anything, but where you end up is nothing that I would have expected. And, as much as I do love it, the end takes a slight turn that is a bit far-fetched, but for me, I was able to buy into it, and I loved the horror element that part of the plot kind of brings into it, and that what it added to the movie. So, I mean, I could see others maybe not buying into the third act as much as I did, but for me, it elevated the movie because there's almost different types of horror weaved throughout the story, and it just worked so well for me.
Yeah, the third act is pretty ridiculous, but I think that it's built so well,
yeah,
and it builds upon itself so well that I think more audience members than not are going to be okay with it.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. It does kind of, I don't want to say jump the shark, but it does. It was so subtle through the entire movie, and then it gets to a point where something has to give, something has to happen, and what happens is so out there that it does take you out, not out of the movie, but it does kind of take you back a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily bad because it is so original, and it wasn't where I thought the movie was going at all. I thought it was going to be a straight hypnosis, brainwashing, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's not that at all, and it definitely takes a turn. Now, there was certain twists that I saw coming, but, I mean, you're going to get that with every movie. We just watch so much that there's very little that are going to kind of catch both of us by surprise. I will say that the story, even little bits, like you said, there's not any fat to cut out. Even at the beginning, there was a scene where they get stopped by the cops, and I thought early on, I was like, why did they show that? I mean, other than the whole racism thing that they were trying to build. And then after I saw the movie, I was like, well, that's perfect, because she wouldn't want him to run his ID, because when they made the missing person report, that would come up, and then they would know that he was close by, and they would look there. And so everything made sense. And obviously I'm trying to be somewhat vague to not spoil anything, but everything made sense. It built off itself so well.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
All right, so let's go ahead and move right into the performances.
So, again, for me, it was all on point. I thought everyone pretty much did a great job, and the people that were supposed to be creepy did just that. The standout for me, though, was definitely Laurel Howery, who plays his friend, and I forget what his friend's name is, but he's basically the comic relief of this movie.
I want to say it's Roy.
Roy? Yeah, or Rod.
It's Rod. I was pretty close.
He's basically the comic relief in this movie, and his scenes were just so great. Because I talked about the tension and how it kept me on the edge of my seat. So whenever he did pop up, him and the main character talk on the phone a lot. And anytime they talked on the phone, it was just like this sigh of relief because you got to laugh for a second. And he was just so funny, and he ends up playing a big part in the story, which was great to see. So him not being extremely well known. It was great to see that he kind of stole the show. But like I said, everybody I thought did a great job. Like, her family's supposed to be super creepy, and I think Bradley Whitford does a great job at being subtle at the beginning and then, full on
crazy,
insane towards the end. Same with her brother. Like, he was a little over the top, but I think he's supposed to be. He's played by Caleb Landry Jones, who played Banshee in X-Men First Class. So, again, no complaints for me as far as performances go.
I will say that her brother was a touch overdone. His character was a touch overdone.
Yeah, I mean, they all...
And it might just be his douchey facial hair.
Yeah.
It's super distracting.
Oh, absolutely.
But I thought the main character, Daniel, and I'm not even going to try to butcher his last name. He's Chris Washington is his character's name. I thought he was really good, and I'd never seen him in anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
I thought he did a really good job.
Absolutely.
His girlfriend, Allison Williams, Rose Armitage. What is their fucking fan?
It's like Armitage?
Something like that, yeah. She has to play basically two different characters.
Yeah.
And I think she does both of them really well. Like I said, her brother is a little over the top. I thought Rod was awesome. He was really, really cool. Like you said, when they talk on the phone, you kind of, okay, we're gonna take a little break from all this weird shit that's going on and just kind of have a little fun. So I liked that. I thought I don't know what you would even call them, the maid and the groundskeeper, I guess. They were pretty good in the little that they were in this movie.
Yeah.
Especially the maid. I thought she was really good.
Yeah,
she was super
She
creepy.
had to do a lot with, just her eyes or, her facial expressions, and she did a great job.
For sure. So there wasn't a ton of action so I guess we can kind of lump in action/horror, which, I mean, obviously we've already kind of talked about how we've liked the subtle horror, but...
Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate what you said, I love that this wasn't just make you jump horror, because that's so much of what we get now. To me, it just, again, did a perfect job of building up tension and making you feel uneasy, which is my favorite type of horror movie. Like, you can go and you can see the movies that make you jump and you can have fun in the theater or whatever with that, but in the end, it's kind of cheap, and you don't get a lot of rewatchability out of that kind of stuff, whereas this movie is just so dark and twisted and makes you feel uneasy about so many different things that it just executed it very well. Yeah,
there are no ghosts, there's no, like, paranormal anything, like there's not a monster or anything like that. Not that this could ever actually happen, but it seems a little bit more down to earth.
Yeah.
Like a version of this could easily happen, not the third act. Like, obviously you're throwing that out, but it's super creepy because they don't use that. They don't use that as a crutch. It's all score and atmosphere and acting, and those are the funnest movies to watch.
Yeah.
Because they make you uncomfortable and they don't make you jump out of your seat every 2 seconds. And I just really love those type of movies, and we always talk about when we review any horror movie, like, oh, well, this was a stupid jump scare, that's a stupid... I don't even think there was one. I don't think there was one jump scare one time.
Yeah.
The only time that it even, like, resembled that was the music got a little bit loud at one point, but when you're using the score... I kind of forgive that because that's the way you should do it. You should use everything at your disposal, and I think when you use the score, it's just that's what you should do for sure.
Yeah, for me, that's definitely how good the tension is in this movie is just a testament to Jordan Peele, because that can't be an easy thing to pull off as a director, especially your first time directing anything. So
yeah, I mean we've already talked about the story, but the writing. The characters, I mean, you really cared for this guy, and you got to, it's not just straight horror where, okay, you get all these group of teenagers or whoever, and you're just picking them off one by one, and you don't care about any of them. Like, you really cared for this kid because you had that story about his mom, and it's really touching. So,
for sure.
Yeah, I loved it. It's my favorite movie so far. I don't know if it'll stay there, but I can't imagine Now I'll wait until I see it again, but I can't imagine it getting knocked down out of the top 10 because I've really, really enjoyed this movie.
That's kind of how I'm feeling with it as well. Usually in February, if you say, "Oh, it's my favorite movie of the year," you've seen 7 or 8 movies that were released that year. But saying that it's better than Lego Batman and saying that it's better than John Wick Chapter 2 is like a big deal to us. So
yeah,
I completely agree with you. If this movie is not in my top 10 at the end of the year, then it was an amazing year of movies.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
If anything, like that's a great thing. So I definitely foresee it being in there somewhere.
So star rating?
4.5.
Yeah, I flirted with 5, but I knew that was just a knee jerk. I'll definitely have to rewatch it before I give it a 5. I've only given one movie a 5, and that's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and I'm not sure if I necessarily am ready to put that movie up with Dawn. So I'll give it 4.5, but I mean, I think it has really good rewatchability. So
yeah, I'm excited to go through it again and relook at some of the other nuances that I might have missed until the end is revealed.
For sure. So the last segment is just a nerd favorite. Tyler and I take turns each week asking each other a really nerdy question, what your favorite blank is. Obviously, the topic changes from episode to episode. It's Tyler's turn, so what's nerd favorite this week?
So I talked about For Honor and what we're into, so I'm going to kind of relate back to that. And it's a pretty simple question. I just am honestly curious what your favorite Xbox One game is. And it doesn't have to be exclusive to Xbox One. If it was released on PC and PlayStation 4, that's fine too. But I'm just speaking from the standpoint that since the Xbox One has been released and you've played on that console, what is the favorite game that you've played? And again, I think Pat and I have mentioned this all the time. Both him and I are Xbox guys. We have our Xboxes. We don't own PlayStations. We don't PC games. So we're a little biased here, but it is what it is, and you're fucking listening, so it'll be all right. I probably shouldn't threaten our listeners, but
yeah, I do it all the time.
But we'll give you a sec to just kind of replay everything in your head as far as what you have played. I would say for originality, it's a really close tie between Overwatch and For Honor. But as far as what my favorite has been that I've played, as lame as it kind of is to say it, it's the game I sunk the most hours into, and that's Halo 5.
You son of a bitch.
I can say it's Overwatch if you want, but
no, that's fine.
Halo 5 was definitely definitely not for originality because it's just the 5th game in a series, but I spent so much time on that multiplayer, like hours and hours and hours. I probably put in close to 50 to 60 hours playing team deathmatch in that game, and I don't know that as my life keeps going on and I get older and have more responsibilities, that how often I'll have the opportunity to do that kind of stuff with buddies online. So that was a great time playing that game, and I hope that they continue the Halo franchise with that much success.
So that would have been my answer for sure. I, like you, put a ton of time into that game. I was actually, I always consider myself a pretty good Halo player, but I know you, me, Jeff, my buddy Jeff, and your friend Will would get on a lot and play, and that was a lot of fun. It would kind of remind me of college a little bit. That was the last time that I really played a game that much.
Yeah.
It was almost every single day we would get on at least a little bit and play Halo, and we were all getting really, really good. Will, not so much, but the three of us were getting really good. But so that would be my answer, but just for the sake of conversation, and it's going to be a super boring answer because I talk about it all the time, but I'm going to go with Madden 16. I did like Madden 17, the newest version, but I talked about this last year when Madden 16 came out. I really liked the added feature of the different catches because I'm constantly watching football. I'm a huge football fan, and one thing that has been apparent in the last 10, 15 years in football, passing has just taken over the game. Very few teams run it anymore. And you'll watch a game and the wide receivers are not even fucking open. They just toss it up there and they just make a play over a guy. They're big and fast and they just make a play on the ball. And that was always missing in Madden. You had to be wide open or at least somewhat open. or the wide receiver was not going to catch the ball. And it was super, super frustrating. So now that they gave the aggressive catch, you have a guy like A.J. Green or Alshon Jeffrey, and it wouldn't work every time because it doesn't work every time in the NFL, but you could put it up and the guy would go up and at least make a play on the ball.
Yeah.
And I really, really loved that. Like, it made me want to play the game even more than I already played Madden, because I already played it a ton anyways. And so it just added that realistic factor for me. And I mean, they had run after the catch, which is cool as well. But yeah, that aggressive catch just put it over the top for me. I really, really like that feature in that game. So it would be Madden 16 just for the sake of conversation, but obviously it was Halo 5 as well.
Awesome, dude.
All right, so that's it for episode 130 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast. As always, we really appreciate it if you comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Nerd You're Looking For. Also check out our Facebook and our Twitter and Instagram. They're both at the Nerds Podcast. Like us on Google Plus as well. You can vote for us for our podcast of the month at podcastland.com. Check out our Twitch channel, which Tyler does a weekly stream Monday at 9 p.m. Central. And you can also email us at thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt.
we are the Nerd You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
Later, guys.